Imagine building an empire so powerful it crowns emperors and golden cathedrals, commands armies across mountains and seas, and then watching it collapse, not in a glorious siege, not in a long heroic war, but in a single night of chaos beside a dark river. That is exactly what happened in 1371 at the Battle of Maritsa, a clash that shattered the fragile remains of the Serbian Empire and cleared the path for the unstoppable expansion of the Ottoman Empire into southeastern Europe. To understand how everything unraveled, you have to go back to the death of Emperor Stefan Dušan in 1355. Under Dušan, Serbia had reached its golden age. Its territory stretched from the Danube River to the Aegean Sea, absorbing parts of Macedonia, Epirus, Thessaly, and Albania. Trade flourished, fortresses were strengthened, and the imperial court projected confidence and legitimacy. But when Dušan died unexpectedly, the empire did not have the internal structure to survive him. His successor, Stefan Uroš V, lacked the authority to control powerful regional nobles. What had once been a centralized empire quickly fractured into semi-independent lordships. Ambitious magnates began acting like sovereign rulers in their own territories, collecting taxes, raising private armies, and negotiating alliances independently. Titles remained grand, but unity was gone. At the same time, across the narrow waters of the Dardanelles, a new power was rising with frightening efficiency. The Ottomans had already crossed into Europe earlier in the century and captured strategic positions in Thrace. Unlike the fragmented Balkan states, the Ottomans operated under a centralized command, blending steppe cavalry traditions with disciplined military organization and administrative skill. They were not temporary raiders. They were building an empire step by step, fortress by fortress. While Serbian nobles argued over prestige and territory, Ottoman forces consolidated control in Europe, absorbing cities and turning them into forward bases for further expansion. By the late 1360s, Ottoman pressure on Macedonia and Thrace was intensifying. Raids became occupations, occupations became provinces. Yet many Balkan leaders still believed they could contain the threat with a single decisive campaign. That belief would lead directly to disaster. Among the most powerful Serbian figures of the time were King Vukašin Mrnjavčević and his brother Despot Jovan Uglješa. Vukašin had been crowned co-ruler, effectively sharing authority over what remained of the Serbian state, while Uglješa governed territories near the lower Maritsa River, dangerously close to Ottoman-controlled lands. Uglješa in particular recognized how serious the Ottoman expansion had become. He saw villages fall, trade disrupted, and strategic towns slipping away. Waiting meant slow suffocation. So in 1371, the brothers gathered a large coalition army, drawing forces from various Serbian regions and allies who still feared Ottoman dominance. Estimates of their numbers vary widely in historical sources, but it is clear that their army significantly outnumbered the Ottoman contingent stationed in the area. Their objective was bold and aggressive: strike the Ottoman forces in Europe before Sultan Murad I could reinforce them. At that time, Murad was engaged in campaigns in Anatolia, which the Serbian leaders interpreted as an opportunity. They believed the European Ottoman forces were vulnerable, scattered, and unprepared for a massive coordinated attack. The Serbian army advanced toward the Maritsa River, confident that numerical superiority would guarantee victory. Camps were established near the riverbanks, likely with the expectation of launching an offensive at dawn. But numbers alone do not win wars. The Ottomans, though fewer, were led by experienced commanders who understood mobility, reconnaissance, and surprise tactics. They gathered intelligence on the Serbian camp and recognized weaknesses in its security. Whether through overconfidence or poor coordination, the Serbian defenses were not tight enough for a force operating so close to enemy territory. What was meant to be a show of strength became a fatal miscalculation. In the quiet hours before sunrise on September 26, 1371, the stage was set for a strike that would alter Balkan history forever. In the darkest hours before dawn, while much of the Serbian camp rested beside the Maritsa River, the Ottoman commanders made their move. Instead of waiting to be attacked, they chose initiative. A smaller but highly disciplined Ottoman force advanced silently through the night, navigating terrain they knew well. Surprise was their greatest weapon. The first wave targeted guards and outer defenses, cutting them down before alarms could properly spread. Confusion exploded across the camp. Soldiers woke to shouting, steel clashing in darkness, and tents collapsing around them. There was no time to form ranks, no time to organize defensive lines. Armor meant for open-field combat became a burden in panic. Some men attempted to rally, but leadership was struck early. Both Vukašin and Uglješa were killed during the chaos, and with them went centralized command. Once the chain of command shattered, discipline collapsed. Thousands fled toward the Maritsa River in desperation, but the river itself turned into a death trap. Weighted down with weapons and armor, many drowned in the current. Others were cut down while trying to escape. By sunrise, what had been one of the largest Serbian mobilizations of the late medieval period was annihilated. The Ottomans had achieved total victory in a single night operation. It was not simply a battlefield defeat, it was a psychological shock that shattered confidence across the Balkans. The aftermath of the Battle of Maritsa transformed southeastern Europe. With the deaths of Vukašin and Uglješa, a massive power vacuum emerged. Regional lords who might have resisted now faced a harsh reality. The Ottomans were not a temporary threat. They were a permanent and expanding empire. Many Balkan rulers chose survival over destruction, accepting vassal status under Ottoman authority. Tribute payments began. Troops were supplied to Ottoman campaigns. Political independence slowly eroded. Instead of one decisive conquest, the Ottomans used a calculated strategy of absorption, allowing local elites to maintain positions so long as they recognized Ottoman supremacy. This method reduced rebellion and stabilized newly acquired territories. Maritsa marked the beginning of sustained Ottoman dominance in Macedonia and Thrace, paving the way for deeper expansion into the Balkans. Less than 2 decades later, the region would witness another major clash at Kosovo in 1389, but the balance of power had already shifted. The fall of the Serbian imperial dream did not happen in a dramatic final siege. It faded in the aftermath of a single devastating night. The Battle of Maritsa stands as a brutal lesson in the cost of disunity, overconfidence, and underestimating a disciplined rising power. History rarely changes direction so quickly, but on the banks of the Maritsa River in 1371, an empire's fate was sealed before the sun even rose.